Welcome to the Holy Post. James Dobson, the founder of Focus on the Family, died this week. Critics are saying Dobson was the godfather of child abuse, while his fans are saying he belongs on the Mount Rushmore of evangelicalism. Who's right? Today, Phil, Mike Erie, and I discuss Dobson's legacy and why the controversial conservative is secretly responsible for the creation of Veggietales. Then rising political social media star and Texas State Representative James Talarico joins me to talk about his faith and what makes his frequent references to Christianity in his progressive politics different from the approach of Christian nationalists. Also this week, Cracker Barrel apologizes for changing its logo after being accused of stripping away America's heritage and culture. Here is episode 684.
Hey there, welcome back to the show. This is the Holy Post podcast. I'm here with Skye Jitani in studio with me in Wheaton, Illinois. Hi, Skye.
Hi, Phil.
And we don't have Caitlin because she ran back to Durham. She spent 3 weeks in Wheaton and said, enough of that. I'm going back to Durham. She's gone forever. Oh, well. No, I'm just kidding. She'll be back next week. And we're here with Mike Erie from, are you in Franklin?
Franklin, Tennessee.
Tennessee. Mike Erie. Hi, how are you, Mike?
Hi, Phil. Hi, Skye.
Hi.
Hi.
You need to try to match my energy with
I was trying. It's
word.
Like you go from Caitlin to Mike. It's like varsity to freshman.
Oh.
Like football is what we got here. No,
you
it's fine.
Could totally knock her down. You could totally knock her down.
If I could catch her,
if
that's
true.
True.
If you were in
that's
tackle
true.
practice.
That's fair.
Yeah,
that's totally fair.
She'd be doomed. She would be doomed. And now it's time for the theme song.
What's the news that you like the most? Who's your favorite podcast host? If it's breakfast, get your toast. It's Skye, Phil, Caitlin, and the Holy Post. Skye, Phil, Caitlin, and the Holy Post.
And sometimes other people. The Holy Post is sponsored by Brooklyn Bedding. You need a bed. Everyone needs a bed. It took a while for me to learn how much of a difference a good mattress makes. And now that our kids are grown up, they're figuring it out too. And that's why we got our daughter a new queen-size mattress from Brooklyn Bedding. She loves it, and you will too. Brooklyn Bedding. They've been around for 25 years, and they're known for high-end comfort and quality without the high-end price. Pick your firmness, your height, your dimensions, and get free shipping from their factory in Arizona. Upgrade to Cloud Pillow Top. It's like a pillow that's a cloud on top. Try your new Brooklyn Bedding mattress for up to 120 nights. If you don't love it as much as we do, they'll help you return it or pick out a different one. You've got nothing to lose except a bad night's sleep. Go to brooklynbedding.com and use our promo code HOLYPOST at checkout to get 30% off site-wide. This offer's not available anywhere else. You have to use our promo code on the very last page at checkout to get this discount. That's brooklynbedding.com and use our promo code HOLYPOST for 30% off site-wide. brooklynbedding.com, promo code HOLYPOST.
With prices going up on just about everything these days, dealing with money can be super stressful. Trying to manage subscriptions, track your spending, cut costs without being overwhelmed, it's a mess. But thankfully, Rocket Money can relieve some of that stress and help you feel more confident in the financial decisions you're making. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions. It monitors your spending and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Rocket Money's 5 million members have saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions. And members save up to $740 a year when they use all of the app's premium features. So if you want to find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals more quickly, use Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/holypost today. That's rocketmoney.com/holypost. rocketmoney.com/holypost. And thanks to Rocket Money for sponsoring this episode.
Oh, and sometimes other people. That's appropriate.
Yeah.
Because we have another people.
Yes, he's another people.
He's another people. I updated the theme song, Mike.
Oh, I heard.
Oh, you heard? Oh, good. I'm glad you're paying attention.
Other people's better than those people.
Yes. And sometimes those people. That would be, that's
menacing.
Laced with menace. Speaking of lacing with menace, let's talk about Cracker Barrel.
Is that why their food's so addictive? It's laced with menace.
Should we talk about Cracker Barrel? Cracker Barrel refreshed its logo and paid the price. Here's what brand experts say went wrong.
Brand experts.
When Cracker Barrel unveiled its new logo last week, it wouldn't have expected the marketing move to spark a public furor and cause the restaurant chain's value to sink by nearly $100 million. They lost. This is the biggest news since Sydney, whatever her name is, put on a pair of jeans. Cracker Barrel acknowledged in a statement on Monday that, quote, "We could have done a better job sharing who we are and who we will always be."
How many roomfuls of PR people did it take to craft that load of garbage?
Cracker Barrel.
Is there? I mean, I thought the old adage was there's no such thing as bad press. So I didn't even know Cracker Barrel still existed until the uproar.
Wait,
so I mean,
you live in Tennessee. That's Cracker Barrel's Eden. That's where it started.
Okay.
How
I don't know.
You don't see Cracker Barrels when you drive around.
No, we're surrounded by Buc-ee's. Do you know Buc-ee's? This great Southern. I mean, it's kind of eclipsed everything. But no, I have not seen a Cracker Barrel. I didn't know they were still in existence.
Wow.
So for me, I'm aware of them now.
Cracker Barrels.
So is that bad?
Mistake. Is it bad that you're aware of them? No, Mike.
Yeah.
You can be aware of things. It won't hurt anybody. Cracker Barrel's mistake was that it replaced a logo with genuine symbolic currency for a, quote, very generic-looking logo that doesn't tell a story. The new logo retains the rustic color palette of the original design while removing the image of an old-timey gentleman sitting in an old-timey chair leaning against an old-timey barrel.
So they removed both the cracker and the barrel.
Oh.
Honestly,
from
though,
the top rope.
Let's pause. Let's pause to honor.
Yeah.
I don't
Can
understand.
you ring the bell for that? You still do the bell? Because that was a bell worthy.
Right now.
The man in do you know the man in Cracker Barrel's original logo is actually someone. It's Herschel
Walker.
The founder's Herschel Evans, the founder's uncle.
Okay.
He put his uncle in the logo.
That's like the Inuit guy on the tail of Alaska Airlines. It's a real guy. I forget his name.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like George or something.
Yeah. Well, but that looks like a realistic. This looks semi-realistic. In 2024, concerns over Cracker Barrel's competitiveness and stagnant growth led the company and its new CEO, former Taco Bell executive.
Oh, there's the problem.
Maybe that might have been a mistake.
Yeah.
We aren't growing. Who's cool with the kids? Let's go Taco Bell to announce changes in its restaurant's menu and pricing. The chain had become less relevant in part because it had leaned too heavily on the, quote, timeless nature of our concept, said the new CEO.
That's their whole concept, though. That's the whole thing is timelessness.
So they are backpedaling. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Here's where... I mean, Mike, you find this interesting so far, right? Even though you just heard about Cracker Barrel for the first time in your life.
Oh, I've heard of it. I've probably been there. I'm just saying I didn't know it was still around.
Oh, okay.
So how can it be bad press if now we're all aware that there is such a thing called Cracker Barrel?
Sydney Sweeney. That's Sydney Sweeney. That's who I was. Yes,
yeah,
this is the biggest uproar since Sydney Sweeney put on a pair of jeans.
I just don't understand the uproar. I really genuinely
don't.
One? This one, I do not.
Okay. Well, because they don't like the new
experts.
logo. And also because there are people on social media now who come up with theories. Were you aware of that?
Yeah, I mean, companies
Is it
rebrand
woke?
all the time, and sometimes the logos get criticized, but this one seems to have a political or cultural tinge to it that I don't understand.
One member of Cracker Barrel's board of directors is catching heat over his DEI-heavy background, following negative reactions to the company's new logo. Gilbert Davila, 61.
Oh, that gives it away right there.
Gilbert or Davila? Or 61. That's too young to be a Cracker Barrel board member. They were going for the youth vote.
Funny. That's
Joined
funny.
the restaurant's board in July 2020. July 2020. Anything going on there that might
Suspect.
inspire someone to try to diversify their board? Also among its top individual shareholders, conservative activist Robbie Starbuck. Are you familiar with the work of Robbie Starbuck?
No relation to the coffee?
No.
That was another logo controversy.
There is no.
Or what about the Battlestar
person
Galactica
named
character?
Starbuck. No, it's from Moby Dick. Conservative activist Robbie Starbuck called out Davila in a video criticizing the company's leadership, calling the recent changes the culmination of a years-long campaign to cater to the far left and abandon the values of its middle American customer base.
What is far left about the logo?
No. Oh, you got to hang with me. So this board member, Gilbert Davila has a consulting firm that he's been president of since 2010. His biography page on the Cracker Barrel website describes his firm as a leading multicultural marketing, diversity and inclusion, and strategy firm in the United States.
Oh, no.
It's on the Cracker Barrel website what they did. They went DEI.
That will psychologically change the taste of their food when you eat it now.
And the logo. And the logo when you...
Poor Robbie Starbuck.
When you cast your gaze upon it. But Starbuck said these cosmetic changes are just part of a lurch away from American values. He did a 15-minute video on YouTube that's gone viral. He notes the company has been active in LGBTQ pride events. Could that be true? Could there be a
Cracker Barrel float at a pride parade?
Or a Cracker Barrel booth at a pride parade that wasn't ironic?
I suppose.
And has aggressively, this is the bad though, that's bad. This is worse. Has aggressively employed diversity, equity, and inclusion policies in its hiring.
Oh no. Last thing we want to do is be fair in our hiring practices.
What's funny about this is what's missing entirely.
I had no idea it was this bad, guys.
It's worse. It's worse. But they never use the word woke. So woke is gone. Like the ship sailed. The woke, nothing is woke anymore. It's all DEI.
Okay. So you're saying that the people criticizing Cracker Barrel are only referring to DEI.
DEI. It's all about the DEI.
But isn't that synonymous for a lot of people with being woke?
Yeah, but we don't say woke anymore. I just think it's interesting.
All right.
Because like if you say, hey, I think this is woke, people say whatever. You say, hey, I think this is DEI. I think they're doing a DEI. They say, oh, crap.
If you were to put various American brands on a spectrum of woke to anti-woke.
We don't put things on spectrums anymore.
I don't think Cracker Barrel would rank real high on the woke spectrum.
Okay.
Well, I would have thought so too, but evidently.
Okay, Mike, I want you to respond to this because you live in
I'm Midwesterner.
Yeah, you're a Midwest. Well, we're all Midwesterners, but you're in the South now, so you can speak into this, and you've been there all of 12 minutes. So
barrel expert.
You can speak into this.
Yeah.
Fanny Starbuck. Robbie Starbuck told Fox News Digital last week, the American people are sick of having our culture and heritage stripped from us.
Cracker Barrel is our culture, darn it. You can't take that from us.
The American people.
Yeah.
All of us. Cracker Barrel is all of us.
That's true.
I just don't get that. It's so insane to me that people consider, how old is Cracker Barrel?
So it's 60s.
Okay, it's 55 years old I'm seeing here. Okay. Is it that universal an American brand after 55 years that to change the logo is a violation of our core identity?
I just have to point something out to you, Sky, and also to you, Mike, if you're paying attention. We got in trouble a number of years ago. I did an interview with I did an interview and
Sydney Sweeney.
No, not Sydney Sweeney. It was just her blue jeans that could make it. She would not come on the show. I did an interview and I brought up the fact, this interesting research that if you could tell if a county voted Republican or voted Democrat by whether the county had more Whole Foods or more Cracker Barrels, with about 80% accuracy.
Wow.
80%'s not that high.
It's pretty high, I think.
Okay.
Okay, I'll raise it. How about 90%?
Sure, make up
90%. And so we were discussing that it's sort of, and the reasoning behind it was that conservatives tend to like things to stay the same.
Yes.
And liberals tend to be, and this is in all areas of life, not just politics.
Jonathan Haidt's done all this research.
Yeah, that liberals tend to be more, they like pursuing new experiences.
Open to change.
Yes, more open to new things, more open to new foods. So you had Whole Foods, which has cheeses from 100 countries, and you have Cracker Barrel, which has roughly the same menu forever and ever and ever. And it's a very middle American menu. And so I brought that up, and boy, did people get mad at me. People got more mad at me.
Why?
They still bring it up. It's a woke preacher clip that gets passed around still to this day because I was demeaning like conservative Christians by calling them Cracker Barrel. So I said, because we ended
Cracker Barrel Christians?
Yeah, I ended up talking about Whole Foods Christians and Cracker Barrel Christians.
Okay.
And that Cracker Barrel Christians were more likely to be conservative and want everything to stay the same. And Whole Foods Christians were more, open to new ideas or new expressions of the faith or whatever.
I didn't know Cracker Barrel was a pejorative.
I wasn't using it. Was assumed that I was using it as a pejorative, which I was not. And I've pointed out to people afterwards that I don't like Whole Foods. I find it.
Right. I could say that neither one of those. Neither one of those sounds good. So
you didn't even know Cracker Barrel existed. Do you know Whole Foods exists? Do you know about that?
I avoid it. I went there once for lunch, and I guess you make your own salads, which you lost me right there. Make your own salad. And so, no.
How would you define a Trader Joe's Christian?
Or an Aldi Christian. Are you an Aldi Christian or a Trader Joe's Christian?
Well, that's kind of all the same company, isn't it?
Well, no, it's
Dollar General
two competing
Christian.
brothers. Oh. It's two brothers that were competing with each
other. Oh, is it really?
Like Esau and...
Yeah, like Esau and Isaac. Yeah, so that ain't the same.
Or Jacob and Esau.
That ain't one of them.
Jacob and Esau.
One of them's covered in fake fur.
Okay, wait a minute. We're going back though to your point, and I think it's a valid one.
Thank you.
Cracker Barrel.
What was my point?
Cracker Barrel is a brand that really stands highly on nostalgia. Right, it's Americana, it's tradition.
It's an old-timey guy.
Yeah,
it's like Dollywood. If you go to Dollywood, it's old-timey people doing old-timey things, and you think, oh, this is fun.
A Cracker Barrel has a big porch in the front with a bunch of rocking chairs. Right, and you go into the country store at the front.
Quilts, and you can quilts.
You can buy penny candy.
Yeah, and like those little wood games that you would play before there were screens. And the whole point of the brand is to say this is like Americana circa 1890 or whatever.
Yeah.
So anything Cracker Barrel does to change or update is going to be met with resistance from its core fans.
Exactly. If we defined Cracker Barrel Christianity as a Christianity that is resistant to change, shouldn't the Cracker Barrel company notice that we said that and say, hey, maybe our audience is resistant to change and we should be very cautious about throwing Uncle Herschel out of the logo?
Well, and my assumption is they did this because they need to reach some younger customers.
Yeah, like that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they're given their menu, their customers are probably piling up in the back and as corpses with busted arteries and stuff.
I don't know what that means. Oh,
it's a very high fat.
Mike, do you think?
Yes.
Do you think
Speaking of high fat,
Do you think I have a point, or is it ironic that some of the same conservatives that were mad at me thinking I was using Cracker Barrel as a pejorative when I was just saying, no, it represents a resistance to change or trying new things, are now mad at Cracker Barrel for trying new things?
Next thing you know, Cracker Barrel is going to have like a sushi menu.
I don't know. Is it the guy that like came into Red Lobster killing it now or something?
Chili's is killing it now. Chili's is the fastest growing restaurant in America right now.
Seriously?
Yeah, it's weird.
That's crazy.
They invented some hot appetizers, including, if you really want to know what happened, because I just read a business story.
I don't think I've stepped into a Chili's since I've been at an airport.
I know, and half of them in our area have gone out of business.
Yeah.
They Nashville hot mozzarella sticks.
What does that mean?
Nashville hot chicken. Nashville hot chicken. Have you ever had Nashville hot chicken?
I don't think so.
What?
Oh, it's time.
What does that mean,
Mike? It's a very hot,
spicy
fried chicken.
Spicy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hot sauce is all the rage right now.
Yeah.
So there were some chicken places in Nashville. I have no idea why we're going down this alley, and our audience is tuning out by the minute, where they started making very hot, spicy fried chicken sandwiches that ended up being called Nashville hot chicken, and you can now get Nashville hot chicken in all over the country in places. You can order Nashville hot chicken. So the Chili's geniuses said, what if we put the Nashville hot sauce on a mozzarella stick?
Dude.
And they did it, and they tried it, and they said, OMG.
And they've turned the whole chain around with that?
And it's called hot mozz, I think. Hot mozz.
Hot mozz. Clever.
Yeah, and they can't make them fast enough.
Okay.
They can't make them fast enough. So anyway, Chili's is okay. Don't worry about Chili's. What was the other one you mentioned?
I mentioned Cracker Barrel making sushi, which I think would be like trout rolled in mashed potatoes or something.
I thought Red Lobster did a rebrand, had a young 30-something executive.
It's killing them.
It is?
Didn't they go bankrupt?
Yeah, they did go bankrupt.
Yeah.
They still have restaurants.
It was that bottomless shrimp that killed them.
Yes, and Mike Strelo is trying to do anything he can do to say, guys,
where is the rap signal when you need one? But also, Mike Erie is right. Red Lobster went bankrupt. They have a CEO post-bankrupt who is trying to turn it
from
around.
KFC, perhaps?
But he thought they were killing it in the right direction. And I said, no, they were dying. They were killing.
Sorry.
Yeah, they killed it in the wrong direction by giving away too much shrimp. You can only give away so much shrimp before it starts to impact your bottom line. Mm-hmm. Anywho, I found it interesting, but I'm going to transition out of this because people are saying enough about Cracker Barrel. I think it's interesting that a brand that is so well known for a certain feel that you could apply it to other things as Cracker Barrel, this means it's not going to change. Would be surprised that people get mad that they changed.
Yeah, I still don't quite get it, only because I don't think the change is that dramatic.
The American people are sick of having our culture and heritage stripped from us. They're kind of putting it into the category of Confederate monuments, which is a little disturbing.
It's not just that, but it sounds like they're blaming Cracker Barrel for the breakdown of the American family or something.
First, they took Robert E. Lee off my school, although the one school named Robert E. Lee, they did not put the name back on, which is a little disturbing.
And now they've taken Uncle Herschel.
And his Cracker Barrel. Mike, how would you use this?
I agree with all of it. It's a sermon illustration.
Yeah, I know. What is it?
Sin is like crackers and Jesus is like a barrel. And when you put them together, you get great bread and wine.
You're not very good at this.
Nope.
That was a terrible sermon.
It was a terrible. Absolutely. I was unprepared.
But that's unprepared
for that transitional question.
That's the whole point, is to see what you can come up with on the spot. I'm not good at it either. Sky's pretty good at it. But should I put you on the spot, or would you really like to pass?
Yeah, give us a sermon illustration with that.
Sermon illustration of things that
I got one.
Okay, I got it.
Okay.
The very end of the Bible.
Yeah.
Final chapter of Revelation, chapter 22, Jesus says, anyone who adds from or takes away from the words of this book, the curses will be added to them. You don't change Holy Scripture. You don't change the Cracker Barrel logo.
I thought you were going to say, who is worthy of opening the Cracker Barrel?
That's the redneck version of Revelation. Instead of 7 bowls, it's 7 Cracker Barrels.
Like 7 barrels.
7 barrels.
Barrels of wrath.
We should sell that Redneck Revelation.
Poured out by Uncle Herschel.
Okay, Mike, what did you come up with?
I was going to do wine and wineskins. Now that I thought about it, it's like you can't pour old logos or old brands into new logos.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or something.
There's something there. Yeah, keep workshopping that. And get back to us.
By the way, the Inuit man on the tail of Alaska Airlines is named Chester Sevick.
Chester?
Is
that an Inuit name?
Not originally, I don't think.
And the lobster is a real lobster. Red Lobster, just to be clear. I think his name was Edwin.
Edwin, yeah. And he used to dance on a little stage in the side of Red Lobster.
Good grief. We all need Caitlin back.
Until
so bad is what everyone is thinking right
James Dobson died. Mike Strelo, did you hear James Dobson died?
I did.
Sky, did you hear James Dobson died? Yeah. Mike Erie, did you hear James Dobson died? Are flags at half-mast anywhere? No?
All the rods that we beat children with are at half-staff.
Oh, don't be like that. Don't be like that. What's interesting is that the reaction to the death of James Dobson has been varied.
It's like a Rorschach test.
Varied. Yes. Yeah. There are, let's see here. Here's some reactions. Wait, where did I put that? The Christian Post said, "A giant of the faith has passed from us. He played a huge role in what he called the Civil War of values in America."
I think both advocates and critics could agree with that.
The Christian Post said he deserves. Actually, this is what's his face, who now runs the Christian Post.
Robbie Starbuck.
No, he was the head of the ERLC.
Not Leather.
No, before
Richard
Russell.
Land.
Yeah, Richard Land.
Yeah.
Richard Land, writing, was a friend of his, said this is an interesting statement. He belongs on the Mount Rushmore of evangelicalism. So if you could pick from the history of evangelicalism, say 18th century on, pick 4 names that belong on Mount Rushmore.
Like who would I put?
Yeah.
Or who do I think?
No, who would you put?
Oh,
Would it include James Dobson?
It depends if I want to include myself in this form of evangelicalism.
Oh, I thought you meant if you wanted to include yourself on the Mount Rushmore.
No, not on the monument, but like, is this
Sky? I put Sky up there.
Is this the evangelicalism that I associate with? Is my question, or is it the broader American evangelicalism that, like, you'd have to put Billy Graham on there,
right? But I mean, how many names could you pick from the past 50 years and say you're representing evangelicalism?
Yeah, but he said 200 years.
What?
Didn't he say the past 200 years?
No, he just said evangelicalism. Oh, okay. I said, wow, that's saying a lot for the last 300 years of. Mm-hmm. Anywho, Daniel Silliman writes, in Christianity Today, Dobson believed in strict but loving discipline and obedience, which he held out as the antidote to America's cultural permissiveness and slide toward moral chaos and social disorder. That's his summary of Dobson's life. We're getting headlines everywhere from he was the godfather of child abuse to he was a giant of the faith and faithful to the end. By the mid-1990s, Focus on the Family received upwards of 12,000 letters, emails, and phone calls every day. He appeared on the cover. I don't know if you knew this, Mike. He appeared on the cover of Christianity Today in 1982. And Christianity Today called him the one man behind the pro-family phenomenon, working to, quote, snatch the tottering institution of the traditional family from, quote, the brink of the grave. So that was 1982.
How well has that turned out?
I don't know. It's interesting because we moved from Muscatine, Iowa to Wheaton, Illinois in 1980. And in either that fall, like 1980 or 1981, they rented a film series from Dr. James Dobson on parenting. And you had to rent the films and you had to get a film projector.
Who rented?
My church.
Oh.
Blanchard Road Alliance Church. Are you familiar with it?
I'm a little bit.
You were a pastor there. Yeah. Not at that time, though. You weren't born.
No, I was born. I was 4 years old and more than qualified to lead a church.
You were 4. In fact, it's the 4-year-old version of you that we're putting on Mount Rushmore of evangelicalism because he was so cute.
Back when I had hair.
Cute.
So and here's the deal. Some people that just know about later James Dobson assume that he was a know-nothing hick from the sticks, fundamentalist Christian from the South probably, who didn't know anything and just spouted. And that was absolutely not true. He had a PhD in clinical psychology from the University of Southern California. He ended up teaching at the University of Southern California. He oversaw a $5 million study of dietary treatment of children with a rare genetic disorder. He wrote multiple scientific articles and textbooks. But while he was doing all this, he did academic research at Children's Hospital of Los Angeles. Okay, so that doesn't sound like a fundamentalist, separatist, I hate experts.
No,
not at all. At the same time, Dobson became acutely, and this is back in the 70s, so mid-70s. At the same time, Dobson became acutely concerned with family structures. He was alarmed by the growing number of children born out of wedlock, the frequency and ease of divorce, and how many kids were sent to daycare. Views on sex were changing rapidly in the 70s, and respect for authority seemed to be disintegrating. The cultural transformations of the 1960s were, according to Dobson, wrecking families and harming children. And this is where they have some quotes from him from CT in 1982 that are an interesting insight into what motivated him. Okay. He was quoted by CT saying, all those things, so everything we just listed, breakdown of the family, ease of divorce, views on sex. Assaulted family life. I was watching everything I cared about being mocked and vilified, and it gave me this passion to do something to protect and preserve it. So it's kind of interesting because what was motivating him all along was less about the health of the church and more about the health of the family.
That's why his ministry is called Focus on the Family.
Yes. Yeah. So it's interesting when they say he was a giant of the faith, when he didn't talk about the faith that much, except to look for biblical teaching that could support what he was teaching about.
So
family.
Would you say it's fair to say he used Christianity in with the goal of supporting the family, or did the family, like, which is the cart and which is the horse here? You know what I mean?
I think the family was the horse.
Pulling the faith.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, his parents, he came from 3 generations of Nazarene pastors. So he grew up entirely. In fact, and this is interesting. I don't know if you know this, Mike Erie. Are you ready?
I'm learning all kinds of stuff right now. Yeah.
His parents were itinerant evangelists, his mother and father.
I did not know that.
And they would travel together up until he was about 8. His parents were largely on the road without him.
And he was an only child.
And he was an only child.
Oh,
so
wow.
he was always being cared for by someone else. And then when he was 6, his mother decided that she should probably stay home. And then when he was 8, he was acting up rather badly. And his father decided he should probably stay home too. And so he took a pastorate so he could bring some discipline. So he could dare to discipline his young wayward Ute.
Okay.
But isn't that impulse? I mean, there's a lot of culture war in some circles today that is literally just, let's have more kids than the atheists do. Like the family
this
is
had
the
nothing
way
to do with having
to reach
kids.
the world.
That's the quiverful thing.
This had nothing to do with having kids.
Exactly.
That was a whole different movement. This was, we have to defend the traditional family, which started out as, we need healthier families, so I'm going to teach you about child psychology.
Sure. But I see the goal of healthier families as more Christian families and better Christian families, and here we are. I guess I would. Yeah, I mean, so I could see where people would say, if you look at just influence over the last 50 years, he would be around Mount Rushmore guy for the last 50 years, probably. I don't know for the last
potentially
300.
Yeah.
In influence,
Yeah.
Exactly.
But that's a different metric.
Can I dare to defend him for a second?
Hang on. I'm going to give you a couple more bits. Dare to defend?
Yeah.
Is that your book? Dobson told CT that he could not tolerate Christian isolationism. When the stakes, but this is interesting, when the stakes were so high, and this is something you hear today.
Of course.
So he was saying this in the 80s.
Yeah.
The stakes have never been higher. Others were saying it in the 1920s. The stakes have never been higher.
Yeah.
So we've kind of always been looking for a reason to say you have to mobilize right now because the stakes are so high.
I think you can make a pretty good case that popular American evangelicalism has always been defined by its enemies, and it's always been discipled by its media. And he exemplifies that.
Yes. He wasn't a pastor. He never pastored a church. Wasn't trained in the Bible. He was a clinical psychologist who started the largest, most influential Christian media enterprise from about 1990 through probably 2010.
Yeah. And the article goes on to talk about the transition from his focus literally on the family to his focus on national politics. And we'll get into that, I'm sure.
But trying to get into his mindset, when he talks about the stakes being so high, here's what he said next. Hanging in the balance is the essence of the Christian faith. Do you know what the essence is?
The family?
Purity, reverence for life, family stability, love for God, and receptivity to the gospel itself. That's what was at stake. That we
sounds like Acts. Sounds like the preaching straight from the evangelist. But defend him, Sky.
I mean, I obviously I'm not defending everything he did, but I'm trying to imagine myself as a parent in the late 1970s, maybe early 1980s.
81.
Okay, and
that's when it went down.
Okay, I'm just hold on. There were a lot of cultural changes happening throughout the 1960s and 70s.
We were freaking out.
And there was a lot of freaking out. And there was a general sense that the old well-worn and accepted morals of society were changing rapidly. And there wasn't any longer a sense that the whole community shared the same values, shared the same outlook. And more parents and families are feeling like, I can't just trust my child to the culture, to the community, to the school to raise them in the values that I think are important. And a lot of parents are scrambling for help going, how do I raise my kids today in this rapidly changing environment?
Yeah.
I think that's a legitimate concern, a legitimate need that a lot of people felt. And Dobson stepped into that need and said, I've got a message for you that can help.
I've got your back.
And whether I think he was sincere in his belief that this would help, I think in some ways he was mistaken on some of the things he taught, but that's what he was trying to address. And I think his popularity came from the fact that there were a ton of people feeling that way. And it's not like he fabricated and invented that felt need or manipulated people into that felt need. I think it was real.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. He one of the books he wrote that someone gave me at some point in the probably early 2000s was Children at Risk. And it was what our culture was doing to kids. You know, and it was a silhouette of two little kind of 1950s caricature kids, a girl and a boy, obviously white and Mayberry-ish.
Cracker Barrel.
On a high wire.
There it is.
Yeah.
On a high wire about to fall off the high wire.
What was under them? Crocodiles?
Nothing. The void. The void. Crocodiles would have been too inflammatory.
Eternal damnation, probably.
Mike, when was the first time you became aware of James Dobson? And did it influence your parenting in any way, or did you have kids later than that?
No, we had the first time I became aware of his legacy was when we had a couple of folks at one of the earliest churches I was pastoring in teach a class on discipline using folks who had taken Dobson's materials to argue for the necessity of spanking. So spare the rod, spoil the child. And so Dobson was quoted a lot. I didn't grow up in that thing. We were spanked as a cultural artifact, not as a Christian duty. So that was the first time.
Clearly
it was
not enough.
I just remember having being super queasy about strong-willed child, breaking your child's will, spanking, all of those sorts of things, giving kind of biblical gloss. And that was kind of the first time I became aware of how some of his stuff had been used.
Okay. His film series, I was in high school, and for like 4 straight nights, we all got together as a church to watch one of these films. I thought they were really good. I liked the guy.
About like Children at Risk, or about
no, he hadn't gotten political yet. This was before there was. This wasn't about the culture. This was about healthy parenting. And he, at one point, he just read the lyrics to Cats in the Cradle by Harry Chapin. You know that? Yeah, Cats in the Cradle, Silver Spoon, when you're coming home, Dad, I don't know when, we'll get together then, son. And he just read them and was like, we were all crying. That's like the saddest thing I've ever heard. And that's what's happening. We have to do something about it. We have to be better husbands and fathers. And and that's how it started. And at some point, and I would also link this because the same thing happened to Francis Schaeffer. Some point it's not enough to just teach biblical living. We have to become active in the culture because we're at war. You know, and for Schaeffer, it was, we're slouching to Gomorrah and it's the end of the human race. Whatever happened to the human race?
I obviously have no insight into this, but I'm curious. I'm posing this as a question.
Okay.
Does that shift, whether it's Schaeffer or Dobson, does that shift away from practical help for Christians in their lives, or in this case, families and parenting, toward politics and national big boogeymen? Does that happen because there's just so much more donor money available when you take on these big Goliath causes in politics? Or does it happen naturally? Is it an organic thing, or is it a financially informed decision that we're going to go this direction because we'll raise so much more money?
I don't think Schaeffer needed to raise money.
Fine, but what about Dobson and focus on the family?
Yeah, I mean, they were he made so much off of his media projects. Because another point I wanted to make is, without James Dobson, there might not be Veggietales, honestly.
Really?
Yes, because he started making kids videos. And they went
into
into
Odyssey? Was that Adventures in
Odyssey was the radio show, and a whole generation of conservative Christian kids grew up listening to Adventures in Odyssey on the radio. So that's where he started. That became really popular. It was on, like 2,000.
We had those.
Yeah, 2,000 radio stations. But then he wanted to move into video, so they produced 4 episodes, 4 VHS cassettes very early. This is like 1989.
Is this like, was that Herbie?
This was McGee and Me.
McGee and Me.
This was McGee and Me.
Yeah.
And McGee and Me came out in Christian bookstores. It had been funded by one donation from a woman in Indiana, like a $2 million donation to make a show for kids. And it was produced in Hollywood. It was really high production value, came out in Christian bookstores. And my mother was working at David C. Cook at the time. And it was all a buzz of The Office. They said the first McGee and Me video sold 20,000 copies in like the first month in Christian bookstores. And that just freaked everybody out. It was like, what's a VHS cassette? And how does this work? And when she told me that, I thought, oh, maybe that's how I start. Maybe it's VHS cassettes in Christian bookstores. So he was the pioneer, or his organization was the pioneer. And then they did Adventures in Odyssey videos. And then they did Last Chance Detectives, which was really like $1 million an episode kids adventure show. They were really good shows. So he kind of paved the way for people like, I don't know, me, to come along later with videos.
Did you ever consider going to Focus on the Family with Veggietales?
I did go to Focus on the Family with Veggietales. And 10, 20 years later, there were still people there that remembered the pitch and regretted that they passed.
Do you know why they passed?
It was weird. It was weird looking. I don't know. I pitched it to a lot of people. No, this was actually later on because I went to, we don't need to talk about this, but I went to Tyndale House because they were distributing McGee and Me. And I pitched it to Tyndale House and they passed. And they, to this day, regret that decision.
That's right.
Because it was vegetables telling Bible stories. Why wouldn't you pass on that? That's nuts. That's nonsense.
That's true.
Yeah, I did pitch Focus on the Family on doing a follow-up series when I thought VeggieTales wasn't working and I was going to have to pull the plug on it. And I developed a new idea and pitched it Focused on the Family, and they liked it and then decided they only wanted to do internally developed projects.
What was it?
Going forward.
Can you share?
I honestly don't remember.
You don't remember?
No, I'd have to look at it. It was human-based.
But CG.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was. Anyway, I don't think there would be a VeggieTales if he hadn't shown how you can get, but this was kind of the fundamentalist impulse of even though he later became very much, let's not be separatist, of let's make our own shows, let's make our own stories, right. Let's make our own radio, let's make our own publishing. So they were doing 140 million in sales of just all of their resources by the late 90s. It was just, he had 1,100 employees in Colorado Springs in this huge campus that they'd built, which had a visitor's center with a kids' play area and a giant slide that went outside the building. People from all over the country who loved Odyssey would come to visit there. It was really something.
It's a pilgrimage.
Yeah, but it relates back to Cracker Barrel. Do you know how? Oh, this is good. Oh.
Not wanting to change?
Their logo during the Dobson years had an old-timey family.
You're right.
Yes, and it looked...
I didn't know that.
Yes, it looked like it might be Uncle Herschel and his wife, except probably from the 1880s. It was an old-timey family with a guy with kind of a handlebar mustache. Yes. Not a handlebar, but a curly mustache. So it was...
funny.
It was like town folk from Little House on the Prairie era. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was the logo forever until... he finally stepped aside and they changed the logo to try to be something that looked contemporary and also non-racial. Yep.
It's interesting. You can Google the logos, folks. It's interesting.
And nobody freaked out. So the original logo looked like one of those photos you get taken where y'all dress up cowboy style.
Yes. At the amusement park.
Yeah,
I'm looking this up.
So there was very much, and the new leadership was uncomfortable with the cultural implications of that logo because old-timey wasn't necessarily what they were trying to sell. They were trying to sell biblical values, and there was too much racial overtone in that logo. Are you looking at it, Mike?
Yeah.
So I thought that was very interesting and very parallel to Cracker Barrel. Except,
nice pull, Phil.
Thank you. Except they didn't get in trouble for it.
That's true because they weren't destroying American culture.
We hadn't become that polarized yet to say, hey, you're supposed to be on our team, and our team doesn't take down Confederate monuments. All right. What did we learn?
We didn't get into his later political activism.
He became very political.
He became very. I wonder if he had just stayed in that. I mean, if it was just focusing on the family, I wonder what his legacy would be today.
Although when they moved to Colorado Springs, and he started to get political, it didn't take very long before there were bumper stickers on cars around Colorado Springs that just said, focus on your own damn family.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, though. When you look at what he was concerned about, and then you look at where we are today, things like the abortion rate, it's going up.
Yeah.
Despite the Supreme Court's overturning of Roe v. Wade. The number of kids born to single moms going up. Fewer people getting married. The divorce rate may be going down, but I think it's because there's fewer marriages.
Right. We don't get married. It's hard to get divorced when you haven't gotten married.
Right. Like it's hard to pick one of those issues that he was deeply concerned about and say that focus on the family or even the evangelical movement in America has done anything to reverse these trends.
Right.
Could you argue he slowed it down? I don't know, but I think
Time Magazine, the obituary in Time Magazine says James Dobson laid the path for Trump's iron grip on the GOP, which is kind of interesting. I'm not sure that. Maybe. The 89-year-old child psychologist transformed a corner of the conservative movement into a roaring political force that shaped the national conversation and became the de facto base of the modern Republican Party. That may be true because his radio reach, he was like Rush Limbaugh of conservative Christians. So he could swing an election for a candidate. He was able to make or break political candidates in part through his two powerhouse groups, Focus on the Family and the Family Research Council.
That's the one I remember more is the Family Research Council.
It's interesting because Time says it was talking about Trump in who Dobson supported in the last few years. But Dobson's feverish crusades against pornography, gambling, divorce, and even SpongeBob SquarePants now seem almost quaint in a party that has fully embraced Trumpism.
What's wrong with SpongeBob?
I forget. He was probably gay. I don't know. Or Patrick was gay. Or he spent too much time with Patrick. I don't know. He kept losing his pants. That's obviously bad. He ripped his pants. I ripped my pants.
I never really watched much.
I ripped my pants. You never watched SpongeBob?
I was too old.
You had children.
My kids were too young. We were like in that in between.
I don't buy it. So and he fought religiously, literally and figuratively, for the GOP to be the pro-life party. And to have a pro-life plank in the platform, which Trump has now removed.
Right.
It's no longer there. So it is, he had an impact. But
do you remember his comment about during the Monica Lewinsky scandal, how much character matters in an elected leader?
Oh, yeah.
And then he came out before the first Trump election and said, hey, the quote was something like, we're not hiring or we're not voting for a pastor in chief.
I don't know if that was his quote. No, he's the one who said Trump was a baby Christian.
No, I had seen something where he made another character comment about Trump that was along those lines.
Okay.
It was totally contradictory to the Lewinsky stuff. See if you can find it, Sky. I love that you're looking stuff up.
Yeah, because I know Robert Jeffress said something like that, and
Wayne Grudem said something like
Franklin picked it up.
All right, so he did say that Trump's a baby Christian. It looks like he also said that Trump's not a perfect man, but a promise keeper.
What?
Trump was flawed. He's not a perfect man, but Dobson praised him for fulfilling promises made to the faith community. He lauded Trump as, quote, the most pro-life president we've ever had. And I'm sorry to laugh. And that he kept, quote, every promise he made to the faith community.
Okay.
We are saying Merry Christmas again.
And in 2019, Dobson said, I really do love and appreciate that man.
Really? Oh, wow. Okay.
I think he's referring to Trump, not Jesus.
I think so. Or maybe the man in the old logo.
Here's the full quote.
Uncle Herschel.
I really do love and appreciate that man. I wish people would get off his back.
Okay.
That was the quote.
That's lovely. Mm-hmm. That's lovely.
But I do think, as we're eulogizing some of these, like John MacArthur or others, like, I love the impulse to look at the origin stories and to see the good motives and the legitimacy of what was happening. But like, I do think you've just got to sit and acknowledge how many spanked kids and how many kids raised in maybe not his teaching directly, but certainly the direction people took that teaching.
Yeah. Well,
and how brutal that turned out to be.
He wasn't Bill Gothard.
No.
Nope. So I guess that's a compliment. Here's my point.
That's a low bar. But yeah.
Do you mean they didn't sell spanking paddles that had discipline by Dobson on it? So when you hit the kid, it leaves that mark on their butt?
No, they didn't do that. They didn't do that. Gothard was worse. And Gothard wasn't a psychologist and had no idea what he was talking about and thought that you could still get wet under God's umbrella. His umbrellas were all backwards, goofy. Yeah. But anyway,
it does show there was a huge market for all that stuff, though.
No one is as good as their fans want them to be or as bad as their critics want them to be. He's not the godfather of child abuse.
Right.
In fact, Anthea Butler wrote that he was a psychologist who didn't know what it was to be human, which, like, oh, come on. Yeah, he's not that bad. Wasn't that bad. The political striving and the mindset that says this culture should be ours, not theirs. Mm-hmm. So we need to take it back. And he did not invent that. I mean, that's gone back for decades.
But. I mean, we talk about this ad nauseum, but the instinct to say there's a lot of brokenness in our culture, no doubt. Mm-hmm. And the right way to respond to that is to take over the culture, rather than the right way to respond to that is to develop a deeper communion with Jesus and learn how to follow his way as an individual, as a household, as a community of believers. Those are two very different approaches.
Yeah.
And it felt like a lot of popular evangelicalism took the first option, which is let's get radio stations and television stations and publishing houses and dominate politics and the culture and try to take it over from the top down. And I don't know if this generation is over it or not, but it seems like at least a segment of MAGA is still locked in that approach.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he also raised the issue, and I think it was it wasn't in the CT piece, but Silliman brought it up. People would say your politics are making people not like Christians.
Yeah.
And he said, we're not here to be liked. And that is so ingrained in the conflict today.
Well,
you guys just want to be liked. You just want the New York Times to like you. Mike Erie wants a sweet spot at some secular university teaching with an endowed chair. And you're sitting on your endowed chair.
We all want that. That sweet, sweet Soros money is what we want.
Yeah. Okay, Mike.
Yes.
Take us out. Is there something to learn here? You've been doing a lot of work on immigration and how Christians should be responding to immigration in this moment in time. Do you see anything that crosses over from what we learned from Dobson?
I think first of all, you both are incredibly good looking.
Thanks, Mike.
And secondly, someone needs to say it. Okay, this is made for video. And then the second thing I want to say is when I was thinking about when I first heard it, I think Dobson embodied the paradoxes of some of the modern Christian priorities and value sets that we're resisting and reacting to, right? He saw culture as a place for warfare and takeover. And engaging in culture war meant you didn't have to make Jesus beautiful. The political advocacy of his later life, I think, is disappointing and hard. The promotion of power over instead of power under, and all that conversation that we've had. But I also think that the search for formulas and systems that will guarantee a certain kind of Christian life, he fed into that. The quest for biblical parenting or biblical marriage or biblical whatever. I just don't buy I just don't buy the premise from which he began to argue. I think the concern was legit, absolutely. But the premise in terms of, in Sky, we, talk about this on and offline, the reaction to what we do instead is just something I think that's very instructive. Is have we addressed the family issues because of all of that time, effort, and money? Or have we created as many problems as we solved? I think that's a very fair question to ask some of these legacy ministers when they pass.
Yeah. And I just have to point out that Mike might be a little bit of a hypocrite because he's out there selling The Biblical Way to Play Pickleball book.
Was Jesus serious about pickleball?
Yeah.
Yes.
Was Jesus playing pickleball
yes, he
God's
was.
way. Okay.
And yes.
And yes what?
No, I was just going to say the immigration stuff has been really interesting.
Oh, yeah. Mike's doing some great work on that, working with Matt Sorens and World Relief. As us has also. Thank you, Mike.
You know what we need, Phil? We need some announcements right now.
Yeah, I got some announcements. This week, this Friday is French Friday with David French. You won't find the show on the Holy Post podcast feed, but you will find the entire episode on the SkyPod feed. Yay! You got to go to the SkyPod feed for French Friday and all of the other great French episodes. All of our French work is now on the SkyPod feed. Also, we are giving away 1 week free trial of Holy Post Plus. Here's your chance to check episodes of Getting Schooled with Caitlin Chess, 66 verses to explain the Bible with Esau McCauley, bonus interviews, Pickleball God's Way with Mike Erie, and more. Sign up today at holypost.com/plus. Okay, guys, thanks for coming in. Mike, thanks for being on the show, filling in for Caitlin. Love you too. Thanks, Sky. Not so sure about you. And we'll see you next week. Goodbye. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. This year, Lisa and I will celebrate our 34th wedding anniversary. Yes, that's a long time. I'd love to say every minute of it has been a breeze as we're effortlessly carried along on the wings of our undying love, but I'd be lying. We've had some really tough times when we didn't see eye to eye, times where we didn't know what to do with our kids, times where we didn't know what to do with each other. Relationships are hard. Life is hard. Both Lisa and I have benefited from time spent with a professional therapist, doing the work needed to make our relationship last. If you'd like to see how a professional therapist could help your relationships, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, convenient to access, and designed to fit your schedule. Visit BetterHelp.com/HolyPost today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/HolyPost. And thanks to BetterHelp for sponsoring this episode. Today's episode is sponsored by Sunday's Food for Dogs. We love our dog. Her name is Kina. We love to give her belly rubs. And she loves to patrol our backyard to make sure no squirrels break into our house to steal our valuables. We also love to give her Sunday's Food for Dogs. It's fresh, healthy dog food that's easy to store and serve. Most dog food is one or the other, either fresh and healthy or easy to store and serve. Because Sunday's is air-dried, it doesn't require refrigeration or prep. It comes right to our door so we never run out, and it's healthy food. Human-grade ingredients, 90% meat, 10% superfoods, 0% anything else. Folks who've switched their dogs to Sundays notice health improvements like softer fur, fresher breath, and more energy. Kina loves Sunday's Food for Dogs, and we love that it keeps her healthy and strong so she can keep the squirrels from taking our stuff. Give it a try. Right now, you can get 40% off your first order of Sundays. Go to sundaysfordogs.com/HolyPost or use code HOLYPOST at checkout for 40% off your first order.
Way back in 2006, then Senator Barack Obama gave a speech about the role of faith in politics. In it, he chastised many in his own party for asking believers to leave their religion at the door before entering the public square. Obama said that progressives needed to recognize that not every mention of God in public is a breach of the wall of separation between church and state, and he foresaw problems ahead for the Democratic Party if its leaders failed to talk authentically about faith and how it should impact public policy. That speech was prophetic. Almost 20 years later, polling shows that the Democratic Party has never been less popular. And it's been losing ground with its most religious voters, Black Americans and Latinos. Most Democratic politicians simply don't know how to talk about faith, and many who try seem awkward and unnatural. And that's what may explain why my guest today is rapidly rising within progressive politics.
James Talarico is a Texas state representative who's gotten a lot of attention on social media for quoting scripture and frequently using his faith in battles with Republicans in Texas. For example, he used the Bible against a bill requiring the Ten Commandments to be displayed in every public school classroom. And then he called out the hypocrisy of the bill's supporters for passing the bill on the Sabbath, which is a strict violation of the Fourth Commandment. These kind of tactics on social media eventually got Talarico on the Joe Rogan podcast last month. And from there are now rumors of a possible run for a Senate seat. I wanted to talk to him for a couple of reasons. First, I wanted to know more about his faith and how he's been able to find a way to talk about it as a progressive Democrat when so many others in his party haven't. And secondly, I was curious what makes his use of Christianity and the Bible in politics different from those on the right, especially Christian nationalists. Is he just doing the same thing they are but getting a pass because he's progressive? Or is there a real difference in how he thinks about the role of faith in the public square? James Talarico represents the 50th district in the Texas State Legislature. He's a former public school teacher, and he recently earned his Master of Divinity degree from Austin Presbyterian Theological Seminary. Here's my conversation with James Talarico. James Talarico, welcome to the Holy Post.
Thanks for having me.
Are you back in Texas?
I am. My colleagues and I came back this week after breaking quorum for 2 weeks to stop this redistricting power grab from going through. We decided to come back because voting rights experts and lawyers that are working on some of these cases have said that a detailed public legislative record is necessary if we're going to try to beat these maps in court, which I think we may have a shot at doing, given that the Fifth Circuit just struck down the Louisiana maps for being racially discriminatory. So we're shifting our strategy a bit back to Texas, but we're really proud of the work we did in our quorum break. And I think it gave us the momentum nationally to address this power grab.
Yeah, you did a lot of media during that quorum break, and you guys were not hiding. You were up here in Chicago.
That's right.
And we were hoping to get you in studio while you were local, but we're very glad to have you here anyway. You have been doing a lot of press, a lot of media. You are one of those political leaders that is very comfortable talking about faith in the public square, which is how you got onto our radar and many other people's radar. Rather than focusing on all the political stuff, though, for the Holy Post audience, I want to talk a little bit more about your faith and background. Yeah. You, I think, are 36 years old. Is that correct?
That's right.
So you're a millennial. There's been volumes written about millennials and faith and how many of them have walked away from faith, even if they were raised in it, or are deconstructing their faith. Can you just share a little bit about your faith story? How did you come to faith, or if you were raised in it, what made you decide to retain it and hang on to it?
Yeah, and I mentioned this before we started the interview, but I'm a huge fan of this show in particular, and the conversations y'all are facilitating about faith in our modern context. So a true joy to be on here. My granddad was a Baptist preacher in South Texas, in the town of Laredo, which is right on the Texas-Mexico border. And he very much instilled in me when I was younger that Christianity is a simple religion, not an easy religion. He would always clarify, but a simple religion. Because Jesus gave us those two commandments, to love God and love neighbor. And so that the greatest commandment was kind of my initial understanding of this religion that I grew up in. And I think it's that commandment to love my neighbors is what moved me toward public service, first as a public school teacher on the west side of San Antonio, and now as a state legislator.
Was there ever a time growing up where you were, despite your grandfather's positive influence, no doubt, where you were second guessing this, contemplating not committing to a Christian faith, moving into a different direction?
I didn't. And I'm kind of like the kid in the group who had healthy parents with a good marriage growing up. And I don't have all the same trauma that a lot of my peers do. Not only was my granddad a positive influence, but I was so blessed to grow up in an incredible church that I actually still belong to today, St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church. I'll give them a shout out on here, led by our pastor, Reverend Dr. Jim Rigby, Dr. Jim, as I grew up calling him. And he He baptized me when I was 2 years old. He actually performed the marriage ceremony between my parents, with me standing right there next to them. And he really took that idea of loving God and loving neighbor to its logical conclusion, which is social action and activism. And so, I grew up in a very socially active church. My first protest I ever went to was with my fellow congregants outside the Texas governor's mansion when I was in 4th grade. It was after James Byrd and Matthew Shepard had been killed in 1998. And it was a protest for hate crimes legislation in the state of Texas. Later, I joined protests against the Iraq War when I was in middle school, again with the members of my church, and our church has kind of been known for causing good trouble. We ordained gay and lesbian clergy in the 1990s, which again doesn't seem like it would be as controversial in 2025, but in the 1990s, it almost ripped our church apart. In fact, Dr. Jim was put on trial by the Presbyterian Church, by our denomination, and thankfully we were able to defend ourselves and hold on to our church. But that didn't stop him from causing more trouble. He allowed an open atheist to join our congregation in the 2000s. He then in the 2010s provided sanctuary to an undocumented mother and son fleeing violence in Guatemala and who were threatened by ICE with deportation. That mom and that son are still living in our church today, almost 10 years later.
Wow.
I was so lucky that I was brought up in a church that really understood what kind of the radical, dangerous love of Jesus Christ means in the United States of America, and I feel like that was a gift that not a lot of people are given.
There's something to be said for the long continuity in one congregation, to know the pastor you've had since you were a little boy, and seeing people around you live out the faith when so many of us are jumping around, relocating, being parts of different congregations. Sure. That's a gift. The church you're a part of is a progressive mainline church, clearly, from the things you just described. And yet you're in Texas, which is what people think about when they think of Christianity in Texas, tends to be mega churches, non-denominational, evangelical, theologically conservative evangelical churches. How do you bring those kinds of Christians into your fold, into your kind of political vision for the country, when you're outspoken about your faith, but your faith often looks very different than other Christians in Texas? What does that mean for you?
Yeah, and I should say that, St. Andrew's, yes, a part of a mainline Protestant institution, but our church very much had a small e evangelical flavor to it. We were very open about bringing our faith into the public square and talking about it vocally and passionately out in the world. And so I've always felt a kinship with my evangelical brothers and sisters, because my church wasn't the kind of buttoned up, frozen chosen kind of Presbyterian church. But like you said, Christianity just looks so differently across the state of Texas, across the country. I'm thankful that here at the Capitol, I have a religiously diverse staff. We've got a Jew, a Muslim, we've got some agnostics and some atheists. And, they always come to me and they're like, what is the Christian response to this? And I always kind of chuckle, because I'm like, all Christians are very different. This is it's a big tradition. It's like rock and roll. There's a lot of different ways to do rock and roll, a lot of different ways to do Christianity. And that's certainly true in a state as big and as diverse as Texas. And so I'm always cognizant of that when I'm visiting another church, which I try to do often. One of the best parts of this job is that I get to go and visit different church communities across the state. And not just churches, also mosques and synagogues and temples. And so going out into different communities and trying to connect with those communities is very helpful for me to get outside of my bubble and understand how the faith looks different in different parts of the state. I do try to focus on kind of the big things that we have in common, even though we may differ on some of the particulars. And I do think that shared moral vocabulary is an opportunity to build bridges into different communities that may have a faith that looks slightly different than mine.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, the shared moral vocabulary. I've talked to some other political leaders, Democratic political leaders, and they're not very good about talking religion. It's just not in the party's ethos the way it used to be. Barack Obama gave a phenomenal speech back in 2006, I think it was, before he was president, about the need to recapture that moral language on the political left. And it seems like very few in the party have actually managed to figure out how to do that. Part of the reason why I think you're getting so much attention is you've pulled it off. You're doing it, and I think authentically. But so many other Democrats aren't. They're just not conversant in this language. So that brings me to a question that's been on my mind. Part of what's exploded your social media presence is you've been really critical of the way the Republican Party, and the MAGA movement in particular, has twisted Christianity to fit its political agenda. And you've talked about, I forget how you said it exactly, that it bothers you that they're taking the religion that you love and using it to do so much harm. Twisting Jesus into like an anti-gay, anti-immigrant, anti-poor, all this stuff. If you know our show, we agree with you on that. Like it is a significant problem. But here's my question. If we're supposed to put our allegiance to Jesus first and politics comes second rather than twisting Jesus to fit our politics, is there a position that your party takes, the Democratic Party takes, that you find incongruent with your Christian faith?
Yeah, I think it's so important that we realize faith is beyond partisanship. I do believe faith is always, by definition, political.
Right.
Sometimes we confuse these terms, partisan and political, and they're very different.
Right.
Again, the commandment to love our neighbors means we have to take our faith from the sanctuary to the streets, and that always involves politics. Even if you think you're neutral, even if you think you're non-political, you are. Usually in that instance, you are siding with the powerful, with the status quo, and rather than siding with those who want to change the status quo. All that said, you can't take the big thing and put it into the small thing. And, our faith is so much bigger than these small human categories like political parties, because those change over time, right? I mean, the Democratic Party is very different than the Democratic Party of the mid 20th century or of the 19th century. Same is true of the Republican Party. So you never want to hitch your faith onto these categories that are going to change so much and are so flawed, right? I mean, as your question suggests, the Democratic Party is not perfect. I've certainly been upset with my party on a variety of issues. One, I would say it's reticence, particularly in the last couple of years, to call out what's happening in Gaza. As Christians, every bombed village is our village, right? Every starving child is God screaming at us, and that is certainly true in the Holy Land. And I think my party was. I think too late and too quiet on this issue. And again, foreign policy is not necessarily my area of expertise. I'm a state policymaker, but certainly just as a member of the party, was concerned that it took us so long to talk about this issue. I've also had my fair share of disagreements on things like public education, where a lot of Democrats, for good reason, are too ready to defend the status quo. I obviously, as a former public school teacher, I stand with our educators who are working hard every day with limited resources under difficult circumstances to do a difficult job of undoing centuries of racism and economic injustice. But we can't be put into a position where we are defending that status quo as good enough, where we're satisfied with the achievement gaps that we see in our public education system. And so I've, sometimes kind of gone against the grain in my party by calling for reforms to our education system. Obviously, I fight a lot of the privatization that we see being suggested by the other side. But I do think we need more Democrats who are willing to call out when these institutions that we love aren't working for everybody and have to be reformed from the bottom up, so that they can serve every single person in this country.
And that's a tough example with education, although I know good people on all sides of those debates, and I wouldn't say that one position or another is intrinsically more Christian. Right? It isn't like Scripture gives us any kind of, definitive position to have on public versus private school or education reform. There's been a lot of data that showed in 2024 the Democratic Party lost ground with some of its traditionally most faithful voters, African American voters, Latino voters. There's been other data, we've talked about this on the Holy Post pretty regularly, that shows the most doctrinally orthodox, the people who read the Bible the most, who attend church most regularly, are Black Americans. Yeah. And yet the Democratic Party is losing ground with them, as well as Latino Americans who tend to be more fiscally or economically progressive, but socially conservative. What do you think the Democratic Party needs to do about that? And in particular, is there room in your party for theologically conservative Christians, Roman Catholics, Muslims, Jews, who, for example, hold to a traditional view of marriage theologically, even while believing all Americans, regardless of their identity, should have equal rights? Can those folks find a welcome place in the Democratic Party today?
Absolutely. And in a lot of ways, I consider myself a theological conservative. And it's important never to mistake some of the propaganda from the religious right starting in the 1970s, 1980s as Christian orthodoxy, right? The idea of you've got to be against abortion or against gay rights, and somehow that is an orthodox Christian position. It may be an orthodox position of the religious right as a political movement, but it's important not to confuse that with our
But if I can interject for a moment, I agree with you, but there are a lot of theologically orthodox Christians. The Pope would be one, for example, who believes marriage is between one woman and one man, or who believes in the sanctity of life from conception to natural death. And those are the views that have been held throughout most of Christian history and continue to be held by most Christians throughout the world today. There is variation, certainly. But there's a difference between believing that theological conviction and insisting that everyone in the country has to agree with you.
That's right.
Is there room for people to have those theological convictions without necessarily imposing it to its full extent on everyone in the country and not be canceled within the Democratic Party?
Absolutely. I was asked on another show if there was room for pro-life Democrats.
Right.
And again, I have some problems with that framing and that kind of slogan, but people who oppose abortion rights, I do think there is a ton of room in our party for that, because all of us can agree on the measures to reduce the number of abortions, to reduce the number of unplanned pregnancies. We know if we treat this as a public health problem, how to reduce the number of unplanned pregnancies. There's plenty of tools in our toolbox to do that, if that's actually the problem we're trying to solve, of course. If the problem we're trying to solve is that women have too many options and too much freedom, there's probably not anything we can do about that.
Yeah.
But if your concern, like Pope Francis, is actually with the life of an embryo or the life of a fetus, then of course that we can find common ground. And I think it's been shown that usually a lot of the positions and policies that are supported by Democrats, scientifically valid sex education, readily accessible forms of family planning and contraception, that those things all reduce the number of abortions, making sure people have health insurance. All of these things work. And that should be a huge area of common ground, even if folks have objections to abortions themselves and their legality.
I think that's an excellent example. What it sounds like you're echoing is the position of your party in the 1990s, as Bill Clinton famously said, that it should be safe, legal, and rare. Emphasis on rare, with policies that reduce the number of abortions. And you're correct that your party has advocated for things like paid family leave and all the other stuff you mentioned, which has been proven to reduce the number of abortions. And yet at the same time, the number of elected leaders in your party who have anything that resembles nothing short of a complete openness to abortion, or even the policies that are popular in Western Europe, the UK, France, Germany, like that is a no-go in the Democratic Party today. So I hear what you're saying, that of course you're going to say people are welcomed into this party, but a lot of the people who have nuanced views on the best ways to maybe handle this complicated moral issue, it doesn't feel as open as it used to 30 years ago in the Democratic Party.
Well, I think if someone like Pope Francis, who may be anti-abortion, but is also anti-war, anti-poverty, anti-climate change, if someone like that can't find room in our coalition, then we have a huge problem. And we're never going to build a big enough coalition to really win the power that it's going to take to transform this country and improve people's lives. And that's the whole reason I'm in politics. Again, I've already got a religion, so I'm proud to be a Democrat, but it is just a political party. And the goal of a political party is to win political power in a democracy. And you do that by persuading people. We don't win power by force. We don't win power by domination. We win power through persuasion and building a big coalition of people who may not always agree on every issue, right? In the last election, you had AOC and you had Dick Cheney, a part of the same coalition. And as someone, again, who opposed the war in Iraq back in the 2000s, it's a little strange to be in a coalition with Dick Cheney. But the moment requires that all of us who believe in the American experiment band together so that we can save and fix this democracy and make it work for everyone.
Yeah, I think yes. The coalition that came together in 2024 you're right, it's a fascinating one. The threat to democracy makes for strange bedfellows, you might say. Mm-hmm. And it feels to me a little bit like the Democratic Party is kind of banking on that. There's a sense of Donald Trump and his coalition is such an existential threat to the Constitution and the democracy that the people who really care about maintaining this American experiment will come back to the Democratic Party because what other option do they have? That's fine, but it's sort of winning through desperation rather than inspiration. And I would love to see a leader or multiple leaders in the Democratic Party who actually lead through inspiration, not just we're not going to destroy the whole house and burn it down, so come on over to us. And towards that idea of persuasion that you mentioned, there was this clip of you that went around just in recent days of a message you gave at a church up here in Chicago. And it caught my attention because you cited a passage of scripture that honestly is cited all the time on the political right. And it's the story of Jesus turning over the tables and cleansing the temple. You talked about how Jesus entered into the seat of power and started flipping over tables of injustice. And you said it's time for us to start flipping tables as well. Your use of that text is different than the way I hear it used on the religious right. How would you say it's different? Because one of the things that caught my attention is I hear that text being used on the religious right sometimes to weaponize the faith or to justify sometimes flat out aggression towards political enemies. It came up a lot leading up to January 6th in 2021. Yeah. Why is your use of that story different than the way a MAGA Christian nationalists would use that story?
Well, there's all the moral difference in the world between Jesus's act of civil disobedience and protest in the temple and the violent insurrection on January 6th. One was nonviolent, the other one certainly wasn't. Jesus wasn't beating law enforcement and storming the Capitol. Jesus was in the tradition of civil rights organizers and labor organizers and protesters throughout the centuries, using direct action to highlight an injustice and move people toward their own direct action. And so the reason I talked about that story on Sunday is because as a Christian, I'm always trying to figure out what does God or what does love demand of me in this moment? What is love calling me to do at any particular moment? And I think on my side of the aisle, there's been this feeling that, love requires us to be polite to everyone. Love requires us to be amicable and gracious and peaceful. And certainly those are all admirable things to try to pursue. But sometimes love is forceful. I think about any parent who's listening to this. If your kid's about to walk out into the middle of a busy street, you grab your child's arm. Sometimes you leave a bruise, right? Love in that way of a parent is sometimes very forceful, very aggressive, especially in an emergency situation. And I think we've all got to get comfortable with that kind of love at this particular historical moment. It's going to require an aggressive posture, but that aggression has to be rooted in something a lot deeper. And I think Jesus's demonstration in the temple in my mind, is one of the best examples of that, of standing up to bullies, but not becoming a bully yourself. And that is such a difficult line to walk. It's one that I fail to walk all the time. But it is one that we should strive for, standing up for ourselves, most importantly, standing up for others, while still being true to your values, to your principles, and to that love that binds us all together.
Your description of a parental sort of tough love, willing to grab the arm of that child before he runs out into the street is, as a parent myself, of course, we all would affirm that. Honestly, I hear and have heard similar rhetoric coming from the right. We all condemn what happened on January 6th, but when you talk to people who were caught up in it, they genuinely believed the big lie. They believed the whole republic was at stake and that the stakes were so high, it justified the violent reaction that they had. It's in their sense, grabbing the arm of that child that's about to walk into the street. They thought they were doing what was right, and they were using Christian, sometimes biblical rhetoric to justify that sort of thing. How do we make sure, I don't care if it's on the right or on the left, how do we make sure that Christian ideas, scriptural language, even theological views are not prostituted, are not subjugated, are not twisted and malformed in our imaginations for use for these political agendas? Of course, when it's our political agenda, we always think it's okay and it's justifiable. Sure. And when it's the other political agenda, it's wrong and bad. What guardrails do you have, you've been to seminary, in your own theology around the role of faith in the public square, do you have for yourself to go, okay, this is a good use of this faith or these scriptures, and here's where it's gone too far?
And it's not easy. And it's something not only that public officials have to grapple with, but it's every pastor in every church every Sunday morning has to grapple with it. Because the alternative is that we never apply these stories to our modern world, right? And we treat it as magical stories about magical people a long time ago. And I really don't know what use that is to any of us. Mm-hmm. And maybe it's comforting, but I don't know if it actually moves us to do anything and to follow Jesus in 2025. So I would say this is sensitive and difficult work for any of us who are engaged in it. I do try to always try to look to that North Star of love. Again, I think nonviolence has to be the dividing line here. Let me just, if I were to speak to the folks who did feel that the big lie was real and that they needed to take action, I would suggest that nonviolence, nonviolent direct action is always going to be more effective for their movement than any kind of violent action, like beating police officers, leading to the deaths of multiple police officers. That I feel like I think history has shown never really achieves the ends that you're trying to go after. I think always nonviolence is able to move people's hearts and minds much more effectively than any kind of violent action. And again, Jesus showed us that path, both with his demonstration in the temple, but obviously on his path to the cross. And that kind of nonviolence ended up changing the world, and is the reason that you and I both still follow that crucified teacher 2,000 years ago. So that I would urge anyone, regardless of what aisle you're on, regardless of what your position is or what cause you're pursuing, is think about how love can always be more creative and more durable and more powerful and more effective than evil. Evil is easy. Evil is predictable. Evil has been done. It's done every day around the world. Love is much more creative. It's much more imaginative. It's much more surprising, and I think is ultimately much more powerful than the forces of destruction and violence.
But before we wrap up, 2 more questions for you, and these get more into faith and what's happening right now in our country. You have a constituent in your district who's a child, a U.S. citizen who was seized by ICE and deported. We're hearing these kinds of stories all over the place now.
Yeah.
If you were to talk to someone else in your district who was a conservative, Trump-supporting Christian, how would you appeal to their faith to describe to them what's wrong with what's going on right now with our approach to undocumented immigrants, or in this case, a U.S. citizen who was taken up by ICE? I know there's a legal argument to be made here. There's a constitutional argument. What's the faith argument you would make?
Well, again, I'm going to show off my theological conservatism, because I would advocate that we go to Scripture. And I think we can look both at the Hebrew Bible and our Christian Bible that one of the most common commandments that we're given is to welcome the stranger, because we were once strangers ourselves. Obviously you wouldn't have a guy with the last name Talarico on your show if we weren't a nation of immigrants, if we all didn't have an immigrant story in our own family. I'm sure that a conservative constituent who voted for President Trump probably has an immigration story themselves. And so Scripture is always reminding us to see our own strangeness in the face of a new stranger, and use that as a form of connection, and to build a relationship off of. And so I would urge us to follow that commandment in 2025, not only because it's the moral thing to do, not only because we were once strangers ourselves, but because strangers make us better. Texas is the great state that it is because of immigration. That has defined our state's history from the very beginning. I mean, if you've ever been to Texas, we're this big mashup of all these different people and cultures and food and music. And I mean, it is what makes our state so vibrant, so innovative, so prosperous. You look at any country around the world, when you start to lose people, when immigrants are no longer coming to your country, that's when your economy takes a nosedive. So Texans know in particular that so many of the folks who are being deported to countries they've never been to before, so many of the people who are being torn away from their loved ones have been members of our communities for years, sometimes decades. Some of these folks have successful small businesses in our towns and in our communities, and they are part of the fabric of those communities. And so, I think that commandment to welcome the stranger is something we're used to doing in Texas. It makes us better. It makes us stronger. And we have to remember that even when powerful people like the President of the United States try to pit us against each other and tear families apart.
To play devil's advocate for a minute, or to step in the shoes of that Trump supporter.
Sure.
Representative, does that mean we need to have open borders if we're supposed to welcome all strangers? I mean, I know you've heard these kinds of rebuttals.
No, of course, it's a great question. It's a great question. No, of course not. We have to know who's coming into our country. I am anti-chaos. I think most Texans are anti-chaos. So having systems that work, that keep us all safe, that keep native-born people safe, but also keep the immigrants themselves safe. Some of them, a lot of our neighbors to the south who are trying to come here to build a better life and to contribute to our economy and live the American dream. A lot of them face so many dangers trying to come over here because our immigration is so deeply broken. And so again, for our safety, for the safety of our neighbors on the other side of the border, we need an orderly system of immigration that can maintain public safety. That I don't think anyone disagrees with.
Yeah.
But again, having a strong immigration system where we honor our legacy as a nation of immigrants and a nation of laws, that is completely consistent with also welcoming the strangers who are here and who are contributing and who are a part of the fabric of our communities.
Indeed. Yeah. We took a trip down to the border a year and a half ago with a number of HOLYPOST folks. And I was talking to a Border Patrol agent, and I asked him, if you could tell Congress what's the one thing you need in order to do your job better, what would it be? And he laughed and he said, comprehensive immigration reform.
Yeah, that's right.
Everyone agrees the system is broken and it's hurting people on all sides of this border. And
that's
unfortunately, It seems like the brokenness of that system is now being taken out on innocent people, including this poor kid in your district.
Right.
Last question. It's a pet question I like to ask people who are really politically engaged. A lot is being said right now, and you're an outspoken person in this regard of all the things that are broken in our current politics, in our systems. If you could wave a magic wand and pass one constitutional amendment, what would it be?
Well, this is easy given what I've done over the last 2 weeks, but I would pass a national ban to end gerrymandering once and for all. And the reason I say that is because I really do think gerrymandering and redistricting generally, the way it's done in this country, is the rot at the core of our broken political system. It is what leads to all the extremism we see in our politics. It leads to a disconnect between politicians and the people they represent, because when politicians pick their voters instead of voters picking their politicians, you're disrupting the democratic process. And that's the way that the people, again, all people, not just Democrats, but independents and Republicans too, can hold their government accountable, can change their government from the bottom up. And so if I had that power, I would pass a national ban as a constitutional amendment to ensure that there is a citizen-led, independent redistricting process without the politics in every state in the union.
Great answer. I like it. James Talarico, thank you for your time on the Holy Post. And thank you for bringing the language and ideas of Christian faith into our politics in a way which isn't trying to destroy people. Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to thank y'all. Like I said, I've just been really inspired by the conversations y'all are having on this platform. I think it's so important. Every time I hear y'all, you are so insightful and compassionate and imaginative, and it's just really refreshing. There are a lot of podcasts out there now, and y'all are one of the bright lights. So just want to thank you for the work you do.
Well, we're going to take that clip and spread it everywhere we can. Thank you for the endorsement, and look forward to having you back on the show in the future.
Would love to.
Hello, everyone. If you like this video, please like and subscribe on YouTube. And even if you didn't like this one, you'll like the next one. And please do it, or I'm going to lose my job. And I have 4 kids. And they eat a lot of food.